Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. It's RGR Football, Chief in the North, live. Seth's here, I'm here. We're going to get all this done. We're going to talk about what's going to be new, what could be different. We're going to be ready for some things. And, I think Seth's been writing a little bit too. We're going to talk about it all and take your questions, at least some of them. Thanks for being here. This is RGR Football. Hey, he lives and breathes.
Yes. I don't do sick. Well, I do sick. I don't do well with sick. Although I personally think that so I was wondering the weather. Thank you for filling in last week and just carrying the entire burden. My understanding is Mr. Harms was also
oh yes.
Just Johnny on the spot as ever. It's a not surprising thing. No, I was sick last week. I wasn't feeling well. And because of things going on at my day job, I wasn't really in a position to take time off. And I could have, but it would have been, one of those things where, if you come in the next day, it's going to be horrible. And I think what kept me sick longer was a lack of sympathy. Because my wife looks me dead in my eye and she goes, well, I know you think you're really sick. And I was like, whoa, what the crap? Where did this come from?
That's sweet. You'll be fine.
Wait a minute. Hang on. I see a comment. Someone asking, when's the Reaper challenge? Never. It is a ghost pepper. It is not a Carolina Reaper. It is a ghost pepper. And Briscoe and I are talking about, we just got to convince Ryan to let me put myself in harm's way on this channel, which.
Oh, Lord.
So that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, so my wife is not super sympathetic when I'm sick. And so I think that kept me sick longer personally.
Okay.
Kept me under. So thank you. People reached out on Twitter and elsewhere, wishing me well. You guys are very kind. I'm feeling great. Life is good. Got my buy drink. I'm ready to roll. I will get these people to sponsor me.
You're back to normal. You're very juicy. Ben brought back.
I am so juicy.
Ben, thank you for your support as always. We'll get to your question here in a second, but juicy Seth is a thing, and juicy is generally a connotation of good. So much so that Stevie went and made an emoji. Are you okay with your likeness being on that?
That works for me. I like having an emoji. Look, there are worse things for being known for than being juicy. That's some wisdom right there for the people.
Very Confucius. I don't know. I'm going to try to avoid that. It just makes me nervous.
It made its way to Times Hours even. That was one of the mailbag questions we did when we were recording. It's who's the juiciest member of the podcast? And Josh kind of knew what was going on. And poor Nate, because he was on vacation and he was working. It's like Nate watches everything I do. He's just wow, what a weird question. And so I said, look, this is my fault. And Josh, of course, goes, I'm not surprised, but go on. Right. It's and so, no, it's been a juicy week. I got a chance to write a juicy article. And you know who has some juice? You know who's got the juice? Willie Gay Jr.
Oh, yes, he does.
He's got the juice. I forgot. So I went back. I wrote about him. And actually, since we last talked, I also wrote about Tershawn Wharton as well in my Young Guns series, which I decided to name after. It was Building Blocks or Young Guns, and everyone wanted Young Guns. And I'm nothing if not a man of the people. And so parts 1 and 2 are up on the Chief of the North Substack. The Tershawn Wharton one is unlocked for everyone, so you can check that out, see if you kind of like it. Willie Gay Jr., that one's locked, but you can, still subscribe and all that fun stuff. Right. bit.ly/Seth really hates money. There it is. See, you always know, and I just appreciate that about you. But I don't know. So here's the deal. Both Wharton and Gay have some juice. Mm-hmm. Which one would you rather talk about first? Because I wrote about both of them since the last time you and I have talked. And I watched a lot of their films since the last time you and I talked. Okay, good. Yeah. And in fact, we talked last time you were on before you got sick. It was the night before you dropped the Wharton one. So I just want to know, is this William, is this Billy Bonnie and Doc, or who is this in Young Guns? You know what? I didn't even think it through that much. I need to. And you don't expect me to carry these bits through to the end. I get started, I say juicy, and I run. And everything else is just, it's just a lucky happenstance. But yeah, they're a pair of interesting players. One thing that I think is cool, and that's one reason why I'm doing the Young Gun series, is there's a number of interesting young players on the roster that have flashed. Hey, Tony Fuentes, you're new. Welcome.
Welcome, Tony. And Ben, anyone's eligible at any time. It's a franchise decision. I don't know if they're going to do anyone this year into the Ring of Honor.
Oh, yeah. Should always be Jamal Charles, but I don't know if he's been gone long enough.
Always. That's
the correct answer to every question. So they have a number of guys on the Chiefs roster who have flashed potential and who have already shown that they can contribute, at least in a small way. And what ends up happening to us a lot as fans, I think, is we take a look at young guys who contribute a little, and we extrapolate. And you and I have talked about that. That's what we love to do. And I think we talked about this with Wharton as well. A great example of this, a guy who flashed a little bit young but didn't do a ton more, Raheem Nunez-Roches.
Yeah.
Who, he showed some decent traits. He showed a few good things here and there early. And what we do, again, we extract, if someone playing this well as a rookie or a second-year player, as a third-year player, they're going to be 30% better, and then 30% better again and again. And that hardly is ever how it works out.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is go through a lot of these young guys, guys like Mike Dana, and the guys like maybe McCole Hardman, if I have time, because he's kind of taken an interesting turn over the course of this season, kind of becoming underrated, which is fascinating. Yeah,
I think he'll thrive in a less pressurized, underrated type of situation, to tell you the truth.
I think so too. He's put in a bit of a spot, and we can talk about him later. But the first two guys that I wrote about were two of my favorite young guys on the roster, Tershawn Wharton and Willie Gay Jr., both of whom contributed as rookies, which is not easy to do.
Nope. And
so I'm curious, do you have a favorite between the two of them, or a different way? So there's two different questions.
Okay.
Who's your favorite, and which one do you think is more likely to develop into a consistent contributor?
Okay. I don't have necessarily a favorite. I've never interviewed either of them, but I will say this. I am partial to the linebacker position because I think it has a chance to be more dynamic than an interior rusher, especially one that, quite frankly, kudos to him, because Wharton took me out of the absolute blue. Yeah. Nowhere did I have any concept of him.
Me neither. That was basically all of us. I remember Nate, who usually has his ear to the ground a little bit, but after a few like OTAs or something, was like, y'all should really think about Tershawn Wharton, because that dude is not. He's not going to be playing the position people think he will. He's not he's going to be, he's smaller than you think, and he can play. And I was like, what? Because, I remember exactly now. We were doing a roster projection, and Josh and I are sitting there, predicting, that Jody Fortson is going to be a 10,000 yard receiver. Man, I feel like he could do it, but we're not going to do that. Not the 10,000 yards.
No.
But you've watched him in training camp too. It's like, man, that dude can play. But it is what it is.
I feel like if they threw the leap ball like they should have done for Chris Conley, he might have had a chance to develop faster than he has.
Yes. Yeah, he's not a speed guy. So Nate, just out of the blue, he put Tershawn Wharton as one of his final 53 guys. And good Lord, that super chat by Andy H.
What did he do now? No, I'm actually pretty good right now, Andy. Thank you.
Okay, are you someone who hates the word moist? Because I know that group exists.
It's unsettling. Let me put it that way, especially when Andy says it. So
sure.
Thanks there, H.
Yeah. So anyway, my apologies. So yeah, Nate out of nowhere says Tershawn Wharton, I think he's going to make the 53, and Josh and I were both like, who? And this is my job. I'm not perfect, but I'd like to think that I normally have a good idea what's going on with the Chiefs. But Wharton, and he took you by surprise too. And I'm surprised by that because he's a tremendous athlete from a really small school.
Yeah. Like I didn't even know anyone who attended the pro day. That's why he wasn't on my radar at all. I even had somebody that I knew that went to Tyreek's pro day. So like that means that it is definitely obscure. So kudos to him. I do want to say this real quick. Holly, thank you for the support. I'm sorry that you're having turmoil, but don't worry about us here. We'll be here for you either way. So
and Holly, if there's anything that you think someone from Minnesota could do for you, shoot Ryan an email and give me your email, and I'll do anything I can to help out. I'm sorry you're going through it. I've been there. I've been up against it. So don't you worry about it one bit. We're here. But if there's something that anyone can do, seriously, shoot Ryan an email, and he'll give you my email.
And all the members will be able. I appreciate that, Seth. And all the members, when the Discord gets launched, hopefully this week, I am working on it. There's a couple of hurdles I didn't know existed that I have to get cleared up first. The members will be able to discuss soon. You'll be able to get me all the time there. So just wanted to say that.
I need to learn what Discord is because I hear that a lot lately.
You're going to love it. Believe me. We'll get you in there because it is the old school comment section. It is largely text-based. It is our member community as one of the perks for the members.
Sweet. Hey, I like perks and I like members.
You are a perky dude.
I am a perky guy. I'm telling you, it's this delicious and satisfying buy drink. They will call. Although if I haven't gotten Tombstone Pizza to sponsor me by now,
you did give that all you could give that. That's for sure.
Yes. But anyway, so Wharton took you by surprise. And not only did he get playing time, he was decent. Yeah. Like out of the gate. Yep. And Mike Dana too. They both got thrown in there unexpectedly. And in week 1 and week 2, Mike Dana was sitting there setting the edge and doing a darn good job of it and being assignment savvy in a pro defense. I mean, that was super impressive. But those are the guys, these young guys, even like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some of these guys, like what I want to focus on, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, the things they did to flash and the things they need to do to be more than flashy. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of guys flash. These are the pros. They're all good. You know, that's... There's
like
no such
thing. And getting all the way to juicy.
Exactly. What can they do to make it to juicy? Because as of right now, they're more slightly moist. Yeah, maybe a little. Nope. We've decided that we've taken that train of thought as far as we're going to go with it. I heard my wife's voice in the back of my head going, "No,
don't say that."
So you prefer Willie Gay Jr. a little bit, but that's partly because of the position, or do you think he's got a better shot at being an impact player?
I think he has a better shot. I think both. I think he does have a knack for making plays. He is that kind of overabundant athlete, and quite frankly, Wharton's got a lot of talent in front of him. Whereas I think the door's a little more open for Willie. It isn't a slight against Wharton. I just feel the opportunity is going to be there for Willie more.
Right. The Jaron Reed signing does some stuff for Wharton. I'm really curious. Wharton is listed as a D end. Not listed. Let me rephrase that. He lists himself on Twitter as a DE. That is interesting. And by the way, shout out to whoever tagged us in that. Mm-hmm. I just appreciate. I barely have to do any internet sleuthing anymore because people tag me and stuff, and it's awesome. If Mitch Morse so much as breathes, I get tagged in it, and it's handy to hear things. And someone pointed that out to. I think they tagged you in that too.
Yes.
And that's interesting because Wharton is a guy that makes sense at D end. He probably weighs about 265. He's a phenomenal athlete. Yep. And I really can't oversell. I think he's as athletic as when you're talking peak Frank Clark as an athlete.
Yeah. Strictly speaking, athleticism, he has no technique to be an edge, though.
He has no technique to be an edge. That's something that there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah.
Because on the interior, most of the times he won. So let's start with Wharton. We'll save Gay for last. How's that sound?
Okay. And Addicted, we'll try to get to the rookies here a little bit later. We covered what we could in OTAs, but there wasn't a whole lot of information. So we'll get to you, I promise.
Right. I mean, there's only so much there. Hopefully, I'm able to make it to training camp. I don't know if that's looking any more optimistic for you. I'm growing more pessimistic by the day. Whether I'm going to be able to make it.
Right? I still can't get the page to load to even get ticketed for the 3 days that I like to go, which are the last 3 days of camp.
Really?
Yeah, like the webpage will not load those for me to even try. And I understand you have to have points. I don't have points. So
really?
Yeah.
This is just a lot to deal with, and I got enough going on. But we'll see. We'll see because we'll learn more because there's value in being there at OTAs.
There is.
And plus it's just fun, and it'd be awesome to see you. Be awesome to have some fun. So with Wharton, what I found watching him was his top end plays are exceptional, and against both the pass and the run. Because his top end run defense plays, one of my favorite clips of him, he takes on a double team and just doesn't move. And that's not the kind of thing you see from guys that run around at 270.
Yeah, that's impressive.
He really plays very, very heavy when he sees what's coming. He's got great leverage, and just, some guys, they've just got sand in the pants or whatever, you know what I mean, where they just play heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got that both in his lower and upper body. It's a rare thing. His athleticism, a rare thing. And his top end pass rush snaps, he just humiliates guards. And I think we talked about this last time, though. When he goes up against technicians, Joe Thuney just obliterated him all game. And the thing with him is, because his high-end snaps are so flashy, I think you can almost get a little bit overrated in a sense in terms of consistency, because that's where it's really going to matter. And it's not like he's terrible, but his loss percentage and win percentage just isn't what I'd want from a starter.
Yeah.
But the raw materials there, like you said, it's a technique thing. And I mean, what was the name of his school?
I believe it was Missouri S&T.
I mean, might as well say Central Lakes College from Minnesota, which is where I got my associate's degree. Brainerd, Minnesota, represent.
Shout out.
Yeah. But I mean, it genuinely might as well have been something like that. Just no one had heard of it. So it's not surprising that the technique wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And there's not ever going to be consistency without technique. And so with Wharton, what I really found was it's really all doing the same thing consistently, snap after snap, that's going to be there for him. And so I'm fascinated by Wharton. I'm a little more pessimistic than when I started out that he's going to be able to be a full-time consistent contributor. Just because snap after snap, you'll see him kind of fade into the background. Then he'll have a big splash snap. That said, he's rarely your weak spot.
Yeah.
The one time that'll happen with him consistently or somewhat consistently, he doesn't see double teams and combo blocks coming, and he got flattened a few times because he just doesn't see them. He gets engaged and just gets pounded. And the interesting thing is when he sees them coming, he's hard to move.
Well, and it's not even he doesn't have the feel for that yet.
Yes.
There's a timing aspect of that. You should be about ready to take it in the ribs.
Yep.
When he learns that, he's going to be a lot better.
Absolutely, because those times when he saw it, because you know what? That's a great way of framing it. You got to be able to feel it without seeing it. And he has to see it. When he saw it coming, he absorbs contact really well. His natural physical talent is very, very impressive. But in terms of just processing it and seeing what's coming, the jump was incredible. So the fact that he was able to be even a contributing player, he belongs on a roster and he belongs in the defensive line rotation.
Yep. That's
an incredible find for an undrafted free agent, even if he doesn't improve a lick.
Yeah. Well, and this ties into Joseph's question. I think they're very good. I think the Reed signing makes the unit drastically better than even if they had signed an aging veteran at end, I think, because I think it frees everybody else up. But do you think that defensive line or the offensive line could end up being a top 10 unit?
With Reed, the defensive line has a much better chance. To be a top 10 unit, it's going to depend on Clark, what version of Clark we get.
Yep.
Right? Do we get healthy 2019 and earlier Clark, or do we get 2020 Clark?
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing to answer. Here's the interesting thing. Even if we get kind of an average-ish Frank Clark, if you see another player step up, like a Tershawn Wharton take a step forward, or Taco Charlton, fulfills his promise, it's still a really good unit with top 10 potential just because of Reed and Jones alone, which kind of that's the frustrating thing in terms of the potential ceiling there. Like, say if Clark can be average, Jones is who he is because he's that good, and Reed is who he is, and you get another guy providing average play, that's a really good line that doesn't have any weak spots necessarily. But the ceiling of it is really that it's where Clark goes. If Clark can be himself, great. And that's a top 10 line with just him, Reed, and Jones, and potentially much higher.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be an apex pass rusher. If he is,
that's
then
what he got.
That good.
Yep, and that's what he got paid to be. He got paid to be one of the best defensive ends in the game.
Yes,
pass, run, all of it, and he hasn't been. Played an unbelievably pivotal role in a Super Bowl run, so I'm never going to call it a failure of a trade.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I mean, I view this as a contract year for Clark.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the numbers about getting out of it. I thought there was something in there that made it a little prohibitive in terms of the penalty, but
next year they'd still be a ton of dead money, but they'd save like $14 million. And that's a lot of money to save.
It is.
But so with Wharton, I'm really curious to see him in the mix. I think there's a ton of potential there. We're going to learn a lot about him when the pads come on. I do think it's interesting that Jaron Reed just mentioned him. Yeah. Just like, this is a dude to look out for. So I'm fascinated by that. But then, of course, and I know we've got a bunch of super chats. If we've got to get to those, that's great. But Willie Gay Jr. is a guy we must talk about.
Oh, we will. Let me hit a couple of these. Ben, thank you very much yet again. I don't know if you have something below. I will scroll for it. Miss Angel Angie, thank you very much. It is nice to have Seth in the fold, that is for sure. He brings a unique perspective.
That is really, really, really kind of you to say, Angel Angie KC. And I'm going to ignore Ryan's slightly backhanded sounding compliment. Unique. You know what's unique? Yeah, I got nothing. I try to bring a unique perspective, but but no, that's really kind of you. That made my night. That was a really nice super chat. I am totally here for the wholesome super chats, guys.
The wholesome ones, nice.
Okay. Or just wholesome chats. Yeah, that's a very wholesome comment. We're all, we're all just feeling good and being nice. I like it.
Hey, season's about to start. Everybody's happy right now. And I'll tell you, not only are you unique, you allow me to not be as tired because I know if I'm a little wore out, you're going to cover the time that we're on here for.
Oh,
I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
David, thank you. Scott, you asked me the same question the other night. I'm sorry if I missed it. Can Humphrey be as good as Mitch Morse? Oh, yes. We need Seth's take.
I'm sorry, Mitch. Yes. He can. Now this is a ceiling. It's a projection because Morse, all those things that Humphrey did at the college level, Morse did as a pro. Mm-hmm. And you never know. You never know. A split second of processing speed mentally can be all the difference in the world at the pro level. But Humphrey has the potential to be a stronger version of a version of Mitch Morse with 90% the athleticism, but 125% the strength.
Yeah.
And that's potential for an awesome player.
Okay. I'm with you. I'm intrigued. I really have my fingers crossed. So, Hey, Jake, always a lot of talk about offense defense, but what player would you like to see break out on special teams?
It would be cool to see Butker, who I trust completely in a game-winning field goal situation.
Absolutely.
I just want to feel a little better about extra points and gimme field goals. I have more confidence in him. He's hit a bunch of game winners already. Some of them like 50-yarders. What was that? Why am I not remembering the Chargers game? Week 2.
Chargers game, like 3 of them from 50
and
plus.
like 3 game winners. It was insane.
I trust him more from 50 than I trust him from 25.
Right. So I'd like to see him get back in action there. I would like to see Hardman kind of recover his mojo a little bit there, depending on what his role is in the offense this year. We'll see what they decide to do.
I hope he's not on special teams. I want to see Pringle take that return thing and make it something special.
Sure. Yeah, that would be nice to see.
I think it'll help McCullough, honestly, to not play returns myself.
I think so too. I think Hardman, there's a few things that could really help him. I'm very curious. I've kind of become like almost a Hardman apologist, whereas I'm kind of at the point, it's like people seem to forget that he does have a valuable role in the offense already, even if he never improves even a little bit. He improved throughout his rookie year, didn't Didn't take a jump at all in his second year. We'll see how they go in year 3. Nate is optimistic, and I tend to listen when Nate talks because, Nate knew who Tershawn Wharton was before the rest of us. So we'll see.
Put it this way. Right now, today, Mecole Hardman has just now played receiver for the same amount of time as most guys who get drafted to this team.
Oh,
he only
absolutely.
played receiver twice in college. So
I'm
optimistic as well.
And that's a big jump to make. The physical talent is very clearly there. That's right, Holly. You and me, Hardman apologists. Sorry, I got excited there.
Sorry, I must be behind. Gooch, thank you. You have been saying that. You've been on Clark for a while. I'm with you. Apologist. Okay. And then the last one, and we will be caught up. Scott Meza, Seth, how do you feel about Parks and Hill working together? Thornhill, that is. Sorry.
Yes. So Parks is an interesting guy. I've watched him a little bit. He kind of flew under the radar as a signing for a guy that has seen as many snaps as he has. He looks like a competent box safety to me. I don't know about a rotation between Parks and Thornhill. I don't think they have necessarily overlapping skill sets.
They played him at free a lot in OTAs. I think that's why
really?
Scott's asking him. Yeah. And
he's got
played
some
back there
closing
some for the
speed.
Broncos.
Yeah, and he's got some closing speed to him. And maybe I'm wrong here because, again, he's a guy that just kind of flew under the radar. I think Thornhill, in terms of barring a setback, I think Thornhill kind of seizes that role that he grabbed in 2019 again, which would be great to see. I think Parks and Sorensen is more where a battle is, although you got to really outplay Sorensen to take snaps from him in Spags defense. You just do. And so, you might even see Thornhill come off the field before Sorensen again this year. It's not the way I would do it because I think Thornhill can play over the top. And if Parks can provide that, Thornhill has some positional versatility that they could take advantage of more if they've got another guy you can really trust back there. But that's just not something you want anyone else doing single high. Matthew can do it, but he's not elite at it, and it's a shame to bring him away from everywhere else.
Well, and I think the net is you're not leaving as much creativity and ball hawking ability if you put Tyron at the back. I think you net out as a loss there.
Yeah, absolutely. You net out as a loss. It's kind of similar to some of your concerns about moving Chris Jones to defensive end, right?
Yeah.
And that's absolutely something to think about, whether or not you end up with a net loss. So no, that's with Parks. They seem to really like him. He seems to be getting in the rotation early. He actually, the very limited snaps that I've watched, looks like he can play. And so it's fascinating that he didn't get a lot of run and kind of got signed under the radar. Could be one of those guys. Was it just a 1-year deal?
I do believe.
Yeah.
I'll look that up here while you finish your thought. Real quick. Voodoo, for Townsend to improve, he just needs more opportunities to kick. He's not going to get him in this offense. That's my only thought. Do you have any thoughts on Townsend?
Yeah. He just needs time. He did have he had some rough snaps last year. And he had some good ones too. I think that might just be a time thing. It just seemed like maybe nerves were an issue. Yeah,
I could see that too. I like his ability. I think he's up their ability to fake and actually make something out of it. I like that one. Let's see, 1 year. Yeah. 1,990,000. So yeah, just a 1-year contract. We'll see what happens with Parks.
Yeah. And so this is an opportunity for him to really do something and get himself paid. And I think the Chiefs are an interesting team to sign with because they seem largely set at the safety position. But it'll be interesting. Depth is good, and I think Parks is a guy that you can have out there, and it can help your defense a little bit. It just, if I see him more replacing Sorensen, I just don't want Thornhill or Matthew off the field if both are healthy.
See, my take is I think he can replace any of them.
And
I think he's well-rounded enough that now you've given yourself insurance against any one of the three being injured for a week or three.
Right. Now that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. Gooch, you're right. Missed it, but I want to know when peak Frank Clark is, and if we missed it, we might have missed it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch him, he was consistent and improving every single year of his career. He comes to Kansas City, and he talked about the nerve issue, all that stuff, and then played really well down the stretch. And I think, I mean, you see, the only guy getting any sort of pressure in the divisional round against the Texans with Chris Jones on the sideline, a guy who had multiple key pressures, hits, and sacks down the stretch in the 2019 season. I don't even know if that was peak him, though, because he still didn't look as good as he looked the previous year in Seattle. So I guess if you'd want to say, peak Frank Clark, you'd look at his 2017, 2018 film, which was tremendous. He did terrible, terrible things to Eric Fisher when they played.
I got to ask you, though, that was contract year Frank Clark.
Yeah.
Is that what we ran into on the second contract? Maybe it's just not there, and maybe we won't ever see that again.
And that could possibly be it. It's just so weird to see such a change in play style. And that's why I keep coming back to some form of injury.
Yeah.
Because it's weird to see a guy that won primarily through bull rush, long arm moves, and everyone knew it was coming, but he built a plethora of moves around that. A guy who formulated a pass rush plan. I mean, he really did everything right. And then watch him just no longer be able to get any movement with bull rushes, push pulls, long arms. That's weird. Now, maybe it is just he had to work like crazy and he stopped. No idea. But I tend to think there's something a little goofier going on there. But I mean, who knows? I think 2020 is going to be, or 2021 is going to be like, it's kind of a put up or shut up year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think maybe there's something lingering from the nerve thing last year. I don't know. It could be, but it is put up time. And Gooch, you're right. That's a lot of money for a third of Garrett's sacks. But Miss Holly, thank you again. And we'll get your questions if they're not super chats too. Don't worry about that. What team do you see being the Chiefs' kryptonite this upcoming season, if any?
Kryptonite's a strong word, but I mean the team that's built to play a type of game that can give the Chiefs trouble would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we saw that. They can get after you with four guys, right? That's the first. To walk in the door against the Chiefs, you have to be able to get pressure with four. Unless you you're the Falcons and you catch them on a bizarre day, right? Because anything can happen any given Sunday, blah, blah, blah. But generally speaking, you got to be able to get pressure with four. And I mean like significant pressure. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to matter unless your offense can score 40.
Well, that's my question.
And that's where the Bucs have an offense that can score 40.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, the way they win, they're not overly reliant on their receivers because the Chiefs D up receivers pretty well. They're not overly reliant on their receivers just torching you. They can win in the middle of the field. They can win with play action. And Tom Brady has the ability to neutralize Spagnuolo a little bit in terms of when he's got to win with blitzes. Now, it's a different gig when Spagnuolo is able to get pressure with four. But that's most good defensive coordinators. It just changes everything about what you can do. But what Brady did last year, and you actually can see it in their week 12, I think it was, matchup, the first half versus the second half, when Brady was under tons of pressure early. And the second half, you saw them starting to pick up some of those blitzes. There's only so many that are in the barrel that are going to fool a guy like Brady. And even in the Super Bowl, it's not talked about a lot. The defense started off that game pretty well. Mm-hmm. And the game went a certain direction. But they're a team that if they can get a one touchdown lead on the Chiefs, can play the game a certain way that can give the Chiefs problems. Most teams just can't.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, other than that, like a team like, if Aaron Rodgers is playing, a team that can put up 40 or 50.
Well, that brings me to what I was thinking is like, if they can put it together and stay healthy, the Chargers look like a team with that quarterback that might be able to put up a lot of points. I think they've lost something in their defense. I don't know that they can get pressure with four any longer, even if Ingram returns there eventually. Mm-hmm. So then they have to score 35 to keep up.
Right. And so for them, a lot depends on Derwin James. Because he generally has gotten the better of Kelsey and no one else does. And that alters a lot of what the Chiefs do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're built around no one being able to cover Kelsey or teams having to play zone because nobody can cover Kelsey. Where they're one of the few teams that can play man successfully.
Mhm.
And so I could see that with the Chargers. With Herbert, it's just going to depend on whether he can cut down on boneheaded throws. But yeah, their defense has given them problems for a while now, and it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. Ingram has generally done pretty well. Joey Bosa is obviously a monster. And I really like what is it, Tillery?
Mm-hmm.
He can play.
Notre Dame, yeah.
But they've got to be able to get that pressure with 4 still. Really good secondary, but they need to get pressure with 4.
No way around it. Nipper Girl, thank you. Glad you're back. Appreciate it. Scott, this is for you, Seth. Hypothetically, if Rodgers goes to the Broncos and Tyron gets his extension, hypothetically, what do you see happening?
So Rodgers goes to the Bronco. Honey Badgers gets his extension. Like, what do I see happening in terms of like who wins between the Broncos and the Chiefs?
Yeah, kind of setting those two up to be the chess pieces against each other.
Sure. I mean, the Broncos have a good roster. I don't have any faith in Vic Fangio, but maybe I'm the crazy one.
See, I have faith in his defense.
Yeah, in his defense. And then if you get Rodgers with that receiving group,
right.
The one thing that's worth noting, though, is Rodgers has gotten very used to awesome protection for years. And the Broncos don't have that.
True.
They've taken some strides, but they don't have great protection. Now, Rodgers is great, so I don't know how much it'll matter, but that would at least be interesting. That said, I mean, Aaron Rodgers with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, they're going to be a really, really great team with him. Yeah. But yeah, it would be interesting to see those two dueling it out. I'm kind of here for good rivalries, but I also am here for the Chiefs being able to, saunter their way to a 15-2 record and the number 1 seed.
I'll take that in a heartbeat. Benjamin, that's the big question. I don't know where it's going. That's where we're at on Frank. He's going to have to tell us. George, I don't know that he's in his bedroom.
I'm in the guest room. So it's the office. But you're seeing the other wall now. And my wife is in the process of converting the office to a guest room / office. I just live here, man. Like, I don't, these are not decisions that I make. I am at the mercy of my wonderful wife, who's far too good for me. So I just go with the flow. Yes. And I said, where am I supposed to live stream? And she showed me. She said, right here. And I said, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is what I shall do. A live stream you shall have then.
Guys, if you want to learn more about the rookie class and what they might offer, you can check out Rogue APC and get the draft guide. Check that all out. I think it's something that is going to play a big potential, not just this year's, but last year's as well. Xanax, thank you very much. I'm going to try to do camp. We're going to see what happens. Right now, I don't have any access. Chiefs PR, thank you so much for working with me, but it doesn't look like I'm going to have a credential. So I'm going to have to try to get ticket space just like you guys. And so far, I have been unable. So I don't know that it's even going to happen.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I actually haven't pursued credentials this year. I personally, whether it's games or training camp, I've done both. I prefer the fan experience, and I don't think I miss anything, honestly, doing what I do. What I do it doesn't revolve around, getting a couple of quick quotes and that kind of stuff. And some people it does, and some people are great at it. Like Nate is amazing at it, but that's not what I do. So I kind of enjoy just going and having fun.
Well, that's good too. For me, it's always about figuring out who has potential. Like, it's never the starters that I watch. It's the guys that are coming up, like, so that I know where I can see them progressing to.
Right. And I want to watch Orlando Brown badly. Like, I'm so curious because a lot hinges. If he can play as well in the Chiefs system, comparatively speaking, as he did in Baltimore system, that's a huge coup for the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, assuming Reed breaks out, who would be better, Clark at an extend Clark at a reduced salary or trade him? They would never trade him mid-season, I'll tell you that. And quite frankly, even if Reed does break out, that doesn't fix your edge problem.
Right. And it's worth noting with his current contract, even if he were to play out of his mind, he would be very tough to trade.
Yeah.
Just because it's a huge contract, and the Chiefs they wouldn't, like you said, they wouldn't trade him mid-season. Locker room dynamics, and Nate talks to me about this all the time. Locker room and in the building dynamics matter more than people think. And I'm not saying like that makes Clark worth his salary or anything like that. What I'm saying is it matters if players feel like a guy they really like and respect got screwed. That matters. And it affects things. And it did affect the 2018 Chiefs to an extent in terms of some stuff. And so those things are worth noting. They can matter. And that's one reason why you just wouldn't see them do something like that, barring something insane happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. George, hope you're doing good down in Florida. I know it's raining a lot. I heard the winds are up, so be careful. Miss Holly, not a dumb question. Credentials is what means that you are recognized press and you get access to the team.
An official media member. And since Ryan, let me think. Yeah, I'm gonna. A lot of NFL teams, some NFL teams, are very interested in credentialing legacy media, newspapers, radio, TV, magazines, and not so much in online publications like The Athletic or online content providers, etc. And I'm just saying that's some NFL teams. That's all I'm saying. And so it's a fascinating dynamic, something that I knew absolutely nothing about until the last 3 or 4 years of my life.
Yeah. I knew before I got into this racket, so that it doesn't shock me. I've been credentialed by 2 other teams, so that tells you something. It's just that, especially now after a Super Bowl win and a second Super Bowl appearance, everybody and their grandmother wants to come in and be in the press room and be able to talk to the player. There's so many applications for credentials for the Chiefs. Like, there's just no way, unless we were a whole lot bigger, that I'd have a chance to be in there. So, but Chiefs PR has been very helpful in getting me content, getting me Zoom. So I'm very thankful to them.
Yes, and they're good folk who work in Chiefs PR. They're nice people.
So that said, it would shape things. It would change things if we had a little more access. But given that I don't even live in town, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
and what we're offering to do is bribe people. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, is that with buy drinks, right? Is that what
with buy drinks. I have this half-empty buy drink that I could perhaps interest you in.
I should have known it. Pick a UDFA that you want to see at camp.
I couldn't tell you if my life depended on it. I don't pay attention to UDFAs, and that might make it sound like I'm bad at my job. The reality is this. I spend the offseason looking at the snaps of the Tershawn Whartons and the Willie Gay Juniors and the Frank Clarks of the world. And with undrafted free agents, that is a draft Knicks game. Those are for guys, when most people look at when they're looking for undrafted free agents. I'm sorry if that's a disappointing answer, Scott. I just don't pretend to know things that I don't know. So what most people do that are really involved in the draft, and there was a really good response to the draft content on the newsletter this year. So I'm thinking about diving in a little more next year. But usually the undrafted free agents that everyone's interested in are guys that they thought would be, 4th rounders, 5th rounders, and that kind of stuff. And I don't do that. I don't mock draft. I don't do any of that. What I do is I ask people, hey, who are some players you're interested in me looking at? And I look at them. And those are almost always guys who are going to get drafted. And so I end up just staggeringly ignorant on undrafted free agents. And then as juicy people too. That's right, Stevie. I'm sorry. Undrafted free agents, they're people too. They are. It's just there's so many people in my life that I only have time to pay attention to some. It's like my 5th kid. I mean, I'm kidding. I love you, Lucas. I hope you never see that and think that I meant that. But it just becomes a matter of where you focus your attention. And so what I usually do is I try to pick out guys that flash in preseason games. Mm-hmm. And so if you ask me after that, then I'll know a couple names of under the radar guys, because that's where you can kind of see flashes there. And you can try to separate guys that actually flash versus guys that just, end up in an advantageous situation.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, if there's a UDFA that I know well, it's because I scouted him as a draft pick and something went wrong. So that tells me there's something missing.
Correct. Yep.
That means that you have to prove it to me. You got to at least make the practice squad before I'm going to give a lot of attention.
Yeah. And NFL teams aren't omniscient. I mean, there's always going to be guys that still get it done, but they do an okay job filtering through. At least if you think in terms of rounds 1 through 7, they do a pretty good job filtering through at that point. And if someone dropped, there's some sort of reason.
Stack Bundles, thank you for your support as always. Glad you made it back. FLDB, thank you for all of your help lately, by the way. And I'm glad that you made it to a Thursday nighter, a little bit different. Julian's here. How are you, bud? Hope you're doing well too. I think you're down south. I'm sure you're getting some wind and rain. Steve, okay, that's what you were talking. See, I'm behind you, and that's why I don't see that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So before we go, that's all the super chats. I don't want to leave anybody here. Julian likes Herring and Boodle, two guys that I have followed. And I'm with you there. We'll see if one of them I'm guessing Herring gets a red shirt year, just so you guys know. But one thing that I don't expect is I think it's very unlikely that a UDFA makes it a linebacker because of the investment in youth. It's kind of the same reason why I'm not seeing them going out and going to get a KJ Wright or a Hicks right now, because I think that they've got the investment, and it's mostly in Willie Gay Jr. because I think he's got the best chance to play next to Hitch this year.
I think so too. And that was an awesome, what's the word?
Segue.
There it is. That was a great segue.
Now that we've destroyed it.
Yes. It's at the thing with the stuff where you use words and, I talk for a living. So that is an interesting thought with regards to the linebacker group. And usually the response that everyone is going to say, it's like, well, they could cut Niemann. That's probably not going to happen, people. They like Niemann more than you think. Niemann.
They trust Niemann.
They trust Niemann. They trust him not to blow it for mental reasons.
Right.
I would argue that messing up a play for other reasons is just as bad. But I can tell you that based on what I see in the choices made by Spagnuolo and House, that's not how they feel.
Right. And I'll tell you this too. I think he was slower last year because he put on weight because he was asked to. I think it backfired on their plan for him.
Yeah, trying maybe to maybe he can be more of a thumper. Maybe he can fill in at Sam a little bit. And he can't. And that's just not his game. And it did not go well. I am interested, seeing Hitchens talk about slimming down. And I can just tell you one thing I know is the players respect the daylights out of Hitchens. Like, everyone talks about Matthew, but like Hitchens is like, people respect him a ton in that locker room. And that means a lot to me. That means something. It would be if he can add a half step to his game by dropping 10 pounds. Now we'll see, because he wasn't that fast in Dallas either.
Right. That's what Willie's for. Willie is a will on purpose.
Yes. And so when you look at, like you said, the investment, because Hitch isn't going anywhere. Obviously, Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. aren't going anywhere. Niemann's not really going anywhere. How many linebackers do they normally keep in the roster? 5, 6?
They go back and forth. Usually, they like to keep 6 if they can, if their special teams are in. That's why Jake's comment on Riley Cole, he's the only one that has a shot, Jake. But with the offensive line and the defensive line, I don't feel like they're going to keep 6 this year. I think it's 5, and DOD is going to do it for the special teams.
Right. And O'Daniel's a great guy to have for special teams. He flies all over the field. It's still frustrating to me that they've never found a role for him, given his remarkable physical talent. Because he's as or more athletic than Willie Gay Jr., which brings us back to Gay Jr. See, we segued back. So I reviewed probably half of his snaps to write about him today. That dropped on the Chief in the North newsletter today. As part of the Young Gun series, writing about where he flashed and where he needs to improve. The thing with Gay that makes it difficult is that the things that he needs to improve on, they're all projections and they're all mental. It's all guesses. Well, I think you need to get faster at processing this, that, and the other thing.
All experience-based.
It's all see, ID, go. You can see him. I included one snap where it was him and Niemann. It's the one where Niemann got hurt against Atlanta. And there's a play action, and you see them both go up. And you see Niemann recognize it and start to drop back. And Gay is still just sprinting straight ahead. And now he recovers eventually and starts to go back. But that's the play Niemann got hurt because he was trying to cover the running back out of the backfield that was Gay's.
Right.
And that's not to say, look, I think Gay outplayed Niemann last year by a wide margin.
Yeah.
But he wasn't asked to do some of the same things. So with Gay, the problem when I write about him, similar to Tershawn Wharton, his flash plays are so high end that it's tough to not look like you're some kind of like propagandist like for him. And he has more of them than Wharton.
Well, I'll tell you this too. He's more well-rounded. We always talk about he's the best athlete and he can do the coverage. He has a lot of bend. He has anchor. He can take on guards and not get destroyed. He's not awesome, but he's really well-rounded.
Yeah, well, because when you hear about how athletic he is, I think people expect him to, weigh like 230 pounds, but he's 240, 245. And he's built not super thick, but he's not svelte either. And he's not afraid to take on contact. He is well-rounded, and his athleticism just pops. And it's well-rounded athleticism too. It's not just him. My kids are playing outside the window if you can hear them. Hi guys.
Hi, Dad.
They're killing Daddy Longlegs. So
okay.
Go kids. Anyway, so with Gay, his athleticism, it's not just straight line speed. It's not just phone booth quickness. It's not. I mean, he's got bend, like you said. He can succeed in a variety of scenarios with his athleticism. And some of the snaps that I showed are, he saved what would have been a huge gain against the Raiders, coming in and closing on the sideline when Tyrann Mathieu got shaken on a nice move by Darren Waller, who Waller had a couple blockers and wide open field. And because of Gay's speed, he's able to take angles where he just cuts guys off at the sideline. It's impressive. And so there's so much to like there. And the fact that he is well-rounded, the fact that he can play physical. The big thing with him is you can have snaps. And one of my favorite snaps of the entire article was one where he got completely lost in coverage, like 360'd his way around, looking around,
right,
but still recovered fast enough to see the ball was coming out to the running back and still tackled him for a 3-yard gain. He beat the corner to the spot, who was Charvarius Ward, who was not out of position. And the big thing with him is going to be adjusting and processing to play fakes and misdirections in the run game and just speeding things up by a half second.
Yeah.
And that's a reps issue. He didn't play that much in college.
No.
But I'm missing his name now, and I'm going to feel like an idiot as soon as you say it. But there was a linebacker / safety hybrid that came out
of
last year.
Isaiah, not Thomas, but I have basketball in the brain for some reason.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas.
He's in Arizona. Here's the thing. On the athletic matrix score, he beat him. Willie Gay was the top linebacker in the athletic matrix in his draft class.
He weighs 243. He weighed 243 at the combine, and he ran a sub 4.5 40 at that weight. And it was like a 4.43 or something. Like, he can fly.
Yeah.
And it pops out every time you watch him. Isaiah Simmons. Thank you, Stevie.
Yes.
And so I just the way he pops out. Yeah, the way he pops out on film when you watch him, it surprised me, because I remember kind of being like, well, he's got stuff to work on, and he does. But I'm actually a little bit angrier in hindsight than I was in the moment that he wasn't playing more, because once again, I am not a big I'm not a big fan of like saying that losing one way is better than losing another way. I think Willie Gay Jr. had fewer bad plays than Ben Niemann.
Yeah.
And maybe not by a ton, because Gay had his fair share of bad plays.
Sure.
But I think it was, at the very least, it was the same amount. It was just for different reasons. But he also made a lot more flash plays, and that should matter. And that, so I'm trying not to become a full-fledged, Willie Gay is going to be a star, but it's easy to watch him and think that he will be.
Well, and my question comes to you about progression of the games that you watched. I felt like he was improving in
absolutely
not only his capacity to process, but his reaction time there too, until he got hurt. I really think that it did him a disservice to miss the postseason.
Absolutely. I think that would have been great for him. I think it would have been great for the Chiefs having him around. I think some of the ways they got exploited by Tampa Bay it would have been really helpful having a guy with his speed in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And he is the most athletic linebacker, complete linebacker, because Dorian O'Daniel just isn't a linebacker. He's not. It was a great idea. I mean, because I think O'Daniel was a 5th-round pick.
Which is a 4th, I wanted to say, but either or, which is funny because he played the position that Isaiah Simmons played a few years before Isaiah Simmons played it.
And I wonder if that, because Simmons wasn't as impactful as people thought he would be.
Nope.
And that Clemson defense, they're well coached and they're unique.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's hard to just, because O'Daniel flew all over the field in college. I mean, it was like, holy crap. I thought he had a lot of potential. Gay Jr., he had a different type of film in college. Like you said, he looks more well-rounded. And he wasn't on a defense that was coached nearly as well. I think he looks like he has instincts. They just need to speed up. They just need to speed up because at the pro level, that half second is everything. So I do like what you mentioned about him being well-rounded, but he's the best linebacker athlete they've had since DJ. It's a lot to think that he'll develop the same way DJ did, though, because DJ became one of the smartest linebackers in the league, too.
And let me remind you, I agree with you that, like, I won't even put their two names together because I don't want to put that on him.
Yeah, that's not fair to him.
DJ got something out of getting benched. There's very few things that I liked about the Todd Haley time, but that got Derrick Johnson to be the best Derrick Johnson, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, like, I wonder, let's not put that on Willie, but Derrick needed time to grow into that, and he needed a little extra push somewhere. Willie might need the same thing. He played like 6 games in college, so he's definitely at a disadvantage experience-wise. Right. We can let him progress at a normal pace, folks, without putting that on him.
Yes, absolutely. It's just because the Chiefs have a need at linebacker right now, people want to see that. And he doesn't need to be a star. What he needs to be is consistently average and still have those flash plays. Yeah. If he does that, he's an above-average contributor in year 2. That's a big deal. Linebacker is a weird position at the NFL in that, guys can either do it or they can't with consistency. And what separates people mentally from one to the other, I think system matters just as much too. And I think Spagnuolo asks a lot from his linebackers mentally.
Yeah, that might be the biggest thing, is being able to process mentally, not just for you. There's a lot of discussion about where the league is going, and will the linebackers continue to be the guys that wear the green dots? That is a question mark, not just because the game is moving more towards the secondary, but because being able to mentally process not just your position, but all the positions on this defense is a taller task than it used to be. Absolutely.
And that's just a tough thing to do. And that's another reason why the team likes Hitchens and has liked Hitchens more than the fan base, which it is worth noting as we talk about Hitch, because I know a lot of people want to see Nick Bolton early and often, and maybe they will, in terms of that third linebacker and that sort of stuff. Because I think Bolton can come in and play any of the linebacker positions to an extent.
Yeah.
And so I think he'll get on the field because mentally he's in a different place, I think, based on his role at Missouri, than Willie Gay was coming out.
Absolutely.
And that's just a whole different thing. But being able to call out the entire defense, there was a noticeable difference when Hitchens got hurt.
Yeah.
And that's gotta be noticed. And again, so I'm really rooting for Hitchens. Maybe this dropped weight, he comes out, has a career year. That would be awesome to see, and it would only be good for the Chiefs.
Well, and that brings me back to Reed. Why can you play lighter at the linebacker level? It's because your defensive front isn't letting you get hit as much as a linebacker. Mm-hmm. It all plays in together, and I think I cringe a little bit if he had dropped that weight and they didn't have Reed. And, if Reed works it out with Seattle and he's back under contract, that puts you, I think, at a disadvantage a little bit. And I love Derek Nottie. Derek Nottie's my spirit animal, man. I want to go eat barbecue with that dude because I think it'll scare me a little bit. But he's not a pass rusher. I mean, Turk Wharton, I see Turk Wharton being the guy that is very much dependent on yardage situation. If it's 2nd and 6 or 3rd and anything, it should be Turk in that spot with Chris on the edge or flipped or whatever, because Derek's great on first down and he can every now and then surprise you with the pass rush.
Yep.
But it's not consistent.
No, it's not consistent. He just doesn't have the movement to develop, I think, a full-fledged pass rush plan. If I were to guess, and that's not a shot at Derrick Nottie. I think he's very good at what he does. but there's a certain amount of movement you need to be able to have in order to, or a certain amount of just overwhelming upper body strength to just plow right through guys. And whereas Noddy is more of a cinder block. He's hard to move. Dude. He is not that upper body strength, grab and throw kind of thing.
If you would put Alan Bailey's upper body on Derek Noddy, he might be Aaron Donald.
I mean, the problem is you need to put Alan Bailey's upper body and then like Tershawn Wharton's athleticism and him not. Aaron Donald's a freak, man. Yeah. Like I keep talking about this, but I mean, I was so stressed out charting Joe Thuney snaps against him because I've actually never charted Donald before.
Oh,
I've never just watched him snap after snap because I believed everyone that he's awesome. He is. And I don't say this lightly because I think Chris Jones is on his way to a Hall of Fame career, and deservedly so. He is so much better than Chris Jones. And I mean, it's just a completely different class of player. And it is watching him. And I know this is completely off topic, but I mean, it's like you're watching a completely different. It's like if someone dropped a D1 college player into high school football games or something.
Yeah, right.
It's just freakish. But I do think you make a good point, though, in terms of the D-line being able to eat up some of those guys. Jaron Reed's versatility should help with that because he's a guy you can throw in on the inside on 2nd and 6, and regardless of which thing happens, whether they run, whether they pass, play action, he can do it and do it well. Yeah. That ability to do everything pretty well, or do everything good. That like, to where you're not just like if you're above average at everything, you're a really good defensive lineman. Mm-hmm. And I think Jaron Reed has that.
I will not argue with you one bit. I like that a lot. Holly, Scott, welcome to the memberships and the upgrades. Thank you both. I think you guys are going to dig the stuff that we're coming up with. Guys, members, you got to get into the rookie part to get the videos of Gooch and Keys and a couple other things that we're working on, as well as the Discord and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get there. I think you guys will enjoy it, as all of our members seem to. So we're constantly growing, and I love that. Addicted, it could happen if somebody gets hurt, but I don't think the Chiefs are in any rush to try to start more than one rookie. I think Humphrey probably has that locked down. I don't think they're going outside of that unless they absolutely have to, though.
I think unless Smith very clearly outplays LDT, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I think Niang will have to less clearly, but still outplay Remmers. And like we've said from Jump Street when we were talking about Austin Reiter, before I really delved into Creed Humphrey's tape, average NFL players are not as easy to beat out as you might think. Especially guys with familiarity in the system. And Remmers and maybe with LDT, there's a lot of question marks there because he hasn't been around, but he does know the system. He's been in it for years. So that's not going to be as easy to take out as you might think. And it's just hard to start as a rookie on the offensive line.
Yeah, it's incredible. So to wrap up, thank you all for the super chats. We're over the hour. You have to go read this stuff at Seth's spot. He's old-fashioned. He writes words.
I do.
He doesn't just, he talks too, obviously here and on Times Hour. So you got to see that as well. But you guys check that out. It is over here. And which one do you want? You want the good one or you want the joke one?
I like both.
I know what you like.
It's not a joke. You use that and you get it for $12 a year forever. I'll never raise the price if you lock in that one. That's, although to be fair, I haven't raised the price yet. So we'll see. One of these days I got to end that coupon.
Someday.
Not today.
Once all of Chiefs Kingdom is subscribed, then
then it's like, if any Broncos fans want to read, they can pay full price.
Yeah, right. Make them. Guys, thank you for everything. All the super chatters tonight. All you new members, welcome. Even if you just upgrade, I hope that you enjoy that. It's going to be a lot of fun. The season's right around the corner. We have a couple of things coming next week. I'm still working on some things. Seth will be back. We're going to try to keep this thing rolling. But, Seth, any parting words of what you're looking for in the next week?
I want to continue the Young Guns series. I'm torn between which guys I want to look at. I am through multiple weeks of Patrick Mahomes' best throws that didn't count, which is one of my favorite offseason projects. I know it sounds insane, but if you read it last year, you'll understand why I do it. He creates a highlight reel better than anyone else's just based on throws that are dropped or called off due to penalty. And so I'm going to work on that. Might throw a mailbag in there. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. You don't want to miss any of it. We'll be back on Monday with the regular Q&A. I'm back here with Seth on Thursday. So thank you all for hanging out. Stay juicy, have fun, and we'll see you next time.